A doorman at a hotel is one of the many people who may be expecting a little something extra from you this time of year, a holiday tip. But in this rough economy, though, you may not be as willing to slip cash into people's hands. Joining us this morning with some tips on how to make sure tipping fits into your budget, Kelli Grant, senior consumer reporter for smartmoney.com. Kelli, good morning to you.
Good morning.
First tip here doesn't involve any money at all. It is a thank you note. Why is that so important?
That is the most important point, because that is, of course, the whole idea behind holiday tips, is to thank the people that have done well by you all year round. So make sure that if you are giving cash or some sort of a gift, that you include a thank you note as well, especially if you can't give as much as you normally do or anything at all. That way they know that they're not being purposely snubbed.
Lots of folks wonder, if I do end up giving a tip, how much do I give? What's appropriate? What's the answer?
That is the really hard part to figure out. And for most people, if you're talking about somebody that you see regularly and you have kind of a session fee, a personal trainer, a hairstylist, a babysitter, then it's usually a good idea to give them sort of that value of like that one session. If you see that person really infrequently, maybe only get your hair cut 2 or 3 times a year, then you can kind of scale that back appropriately. But if you see somebody more often, your daily dog walker, you've got a nanny, you've got an elder care worker, those are the people who maybe even get a little bit more, a week's salary at least.
Then there are some people that, you're just not quite sure about. You just don't know how much you should tip. Ask around is your advice. Who's the best reference?
That's smart if you're talking about people like your building doorman, your superintendent, parking attendant, basically anybody who you don't pay directly, so you don't really know how much they make. In that case, talk to your neighbors in the building, your friends, your family, other people who maybe are doing the same sort of tipping. The range can be pretty wide though, so in the end, once you get that consensus, kind of go on the high end or the low end based on how often you see that person and how helpful they've been.
Often cash is the more preferable gift if you are going to be gifting someone. Cash here, by the way, if anyone's interested. But look, sometimes the gift is something that you should consider, and it's more appropriate in some cases. What are we talking about?
You do need to think about it. I mean, obviously, cash is great. Everyone loves it. But if you're talking about somebody like a teacher, a postal worker, a doctor, or an accountant, these are people who it's kind of a little weird to give them cash. It can be considered inappropriate. In cases of the postal worker, they're not actually permitted to. So think about giving them some sort of a gift instead. Gift cards are great, but it also helps to be a good giver. You don't want to give somebody a store-specific card if you don't know what they like, and generally you want to stay away from alcohol too.
Then if you just can't give it, alcohol, by the way, it's a good idea. If you just can't give it, right, and you just don't have the cash on hand, what can you do? There are some other ideas that you've come up with. What do you think?
Well, that good thank you note is certainly a good start, but pooling a gift can actually be really helpful here, especially when you talk about somebody like a teacher who, how many #1 teacher mugs do they really need? Right. That's where you kind of go in with, maybe your neighbors, your kids' other classmates, and try to get together for one gift. That way they're at least getting something of value, and you're not necessarily singled out as being the guy who can't give a great tip.
There's a lot of folks thinking about this, I'm sure. Kelli Grant.
It's important.
It is. Kelli Grant, senior consumer reporter for smartmoney.com. Kelli, as always, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.